The morning sun poured through the curtains of my new home, casting a soft glow on the wooden floors. I stood in the doorway of the kitchen, my eyes scanning the space as if to make sure it was all real. This house wasn't just any house, it was the manifestation of everything I had worked for over the past few years. The late nights at work, the overtime shifts, the weekends spent studying instead of socializing, it was all for this moment. I had spent months searching for the right place, and when I finally found it, I knew it was meant to be mine. My name is Emily Adams, and this house was my sanctuary. After years of struggling to make ends meet, helping my family whenever they needed it, I was finally starting to live for myself. For the first time in my life, I was in control. I had worked hard for this success, and I wasn't going to let anyone take it away from me. It wasn't just about the house, it was about independence, freedom, and the sense of accomplishment that came with standing on my own 2 feet. The day I closed on the house was a bittersweet one. My parents had always been a part of my life, offering help when I needed it but also expecting me to give everything back in return. It was an unspoken rule in our family that I would always be the one to step up when things got tough. And while I loved them, I had long since learned to recognize when my kindness and generosity were being taken for granted. This new house, however, was mine alone. I had worked for it, I had paid for it, and I was finally going to have a place that was just for me, no compromises, no obligations. The first few weeks in my new home were blissful. I spent my time unpacking boxes, arranging furniture, and turning each room into a reflection of who I was. The living room became my personal space for reading and unwinding. The kitchen, bright and spacious, was where I tested out new recipes and hosted friends for dinner. I even started a small garden in the backyard, hoping it would bring me some peace and tranquility in the midst of my hectic life. For once, I felt like I had everything I needed, and I was content. But, of course, peace was short-lived. One afternoon, while I was putting away dishes in the kitchen, my phone rang. The number on the screen was familiar, my mother's. I hesitated for a moment before answering, knowing that once I picked up, I would be pulled into whatever it was she needed. "Hello?" I said, trying to sound casual but bracing myself for whatever request was coming. "Emily, darling," my mother's voice was smooth, always sounding like she was about to ask for something. "How's the new place? Is everything going well?" I paused, wondering what she was really getting at. "It's going great, Mom. I'm really happy here." "Oh, I'm so glad to hear that, sweetheart," she replied, sounding genuinely pleased. "You know, your father and I have been thinking." I groaned internally. When my mother said those words, it was never a good sign. I didn't need to ask her what she was thinking to know it was going to involve something that would put me in an uncomfortable position. She was always thinking of ways to help the family, usually at my expense. "We've been thinking that maybe it would be a good idea if we all moved in with you," she said, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. "Your father and I are getting older, and it would be much easier for us if we didn't have to deal with the upkeep of our house. Your brother's been talking about needing a bigger office space, and of course, Sarah and the kids could really use the extra room. It's the perfect setup." I froze, my mind racing. Was she really asking me to open my home to the entire family? To have them all move in and take over every corner of my life? I could already picture it. My mother redecorating my house with her tacky furniture, my father watching sports in the living room while I tried to work from home, my brother's endless clutter filling up my new space. I took a deep breath, trying to maintain my composure. "Mom, I don't know about that. This is my home. I worked really hard to get it, and I—" "Oh, honey, don't be silly," she interrupted, her voice taking on that familiar tone of reassurance. "You've got plenty of space. It just makes sense, doesn't it? We're family, after all. We're supposed to look out for each other." I felt the familiar weight of guilt settling in my chest. It was always like this with my family. Whenever I set boundaries, they would play the family card, reminding me that I couldn't possibly say no to them. They had raised me, after all. And now that I had something they could benefit from, I was supposed to let them have it, too. But this time, I wasn't going to back down. Mom, I love you and Dad, but this is my house. I've worked really hard to make this place mine, and I need to have my own space. I'm sorry, but I can't have everyone move in with me. There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and for a brief moment, I thought she might understand. But then, she spoke again, her voice softer but with a hint of frustration. You're being selfish, Emily. You've always been so independent, but you're not alone anymore. Your father and I have given everything to make sure you had everything you needed. Don't you think it's time you returned the favor? Her words hit me like a punch in the gut. I knew she didn't mean it the way it sounded, but the implication was clear. I owed them. I owed them my time, my space, my life. The same pattern had played out over and over again throughout my life. My family needed me, and I was expected to give without question. I bit my lip, trying to hold back the emotions that were bubbling to the surface. I'm not being selfish, Mom. I'm just asking for some space. I can't keep giving and giving without ever getting anything back. I'm tired. There was another long silence, and then she sighed. Well, I hope you'll reconsider. You know we only want what's best for you. I hung up the phone, feeling both angry and drained. This was exactly what I had feared. My family had a way of making me feel guilty for wanting something for myself. And now that I had a place I could finally call my own, they were trying to take it away from me. As I stood in the middle of my kitchen, the weight of their expectations pressing down on me, I realized that I had to make a choice. I couldn't let them walk all over me anymore. This house, this life, I had fought too hard for it to let them take it away. But the battle was just beginning. The following days were an emotional roller coaster. Every time I stepped into my kitchen, I could almost hear my mother's voice echoing in my head, her words lingering, pulling at my guilt and my sense of obligation. I had been raised to put family first, always to consider their needs before my own. But I couldn't help but feel like I was suffocating under the weight of their expectations. I had worked too hard to let them take this from me, not again. I tried to push the thoughts to the back of my mind as I focused on my job. I had a demanding career as a freelance graphic designer, working with clients across different time zones, trying to balance deadlines with personal time. It wasn't easy, but I was making it work. I had chosen this path because it allowed me freedom, the freedom I so desperately craved after years of being bound by other people's needs. But lately, it seemed like I was losing control of even that. I couldn't escape the pressure, not even in my own home. On Thursday morning, I decided to take a break. I needed some air, some space, to think clearly. I grabbed my jacket, stepped out into the crisp spring air, and walked around the neighborhood. It was a quiet street, with neat rows of houses and neatly trimmed lawns, just like my own. People waved as they passed, friendly but distant. I enjoyed the solitude, the anonymity of being a stranger in a neighborhood that was still unfamiliar to me. I didn't have a particular destination in mind, I just needed to clear my head. I wandered for about an hour, weaving in and out of the residential streets, until I came across a small cafe tucked in the corner of the block. The aroma of fresh coffee and baked goods wafted out the door, enticing me to step inside. It was a quaint little place, with mismatched chairs and vintage posters on the walls. I ordered a cappuccino and sat by the window, watching the world go by. As I sipped my coffee, I tried to focus on something other than the conversation with my mother. I checked my phone for any new messages or emails from clients, hoping to distract myself. But my mind kept drifting back to the conversation that had taken place just days ago. I could feel the pressure building again, the anxiety creeping up my spine. What if I was being too hard on my family? Was I overreacting? Maybe I should give them a chance, let them move in for a short time, just until things got better for them. But no matter how much I tried to rationalize it, something in me recoiled at the thought. I had worked too hard to create a life for myself, a life that didn't revolve around constant sacrifices. I had already given so much to them over the years. It was time for me to live on my own terms. I drained the last of my coffee and left the cafe, still unsure of what to do next. I needed to make a decision soon, before my family's pressure wore me down completely. But it wasn't just my mother's expectations that had me questioning everything. There was something deeper, something I had only begun to understand, that was pushing me to reevaluate my choices. That evening, as I was preparing dinner, my phone buzzed with another message from my brother, Michael. We hadn't spoken much since the conversation with our parents, but I knew he would eventually reach out. He always did. Michael had a way of making everything sound casual, as though he was just checking in. But I knew better. He never texted unless he wanted something. The message read, "Hey, sis. Hope you're doing well. Just wanted to see if you were free to chat tomorrow. Got something on my mind." I stared at the screen for a few moments, unsure how to respond. What could he possibly want? I had already told Mom that I wasn't interested in having everyone move in, so why was Michael suddenly reaching out? I wasn't sure I was ready for another guilt trip. But despite my hesitation, I typed back, "Sure, what's up?" A few minutes later, my phone buzzed again. Just wanted to talk about the house. Mom mentioned a few things, and I thought we could discuss it. Maybe you'll change your mind? I sighed and set my phone down. This was it. The moment I had been dreading. I had to make it clear once and for all that this wasn't just a small favor. This was my life, my space, and I wasn't going to let them dictate it anymore. The next day, Michael and I agreed to meet at the local diner. He arrived before me, as always, and was already seated in a booth when I walked in. He smiled at me, a warm expression on his face that made it hard to stay angry. Michael had that effect on people. He was charming, easygoing, and always knew the right things to say. "Hey, Em. How's the new place?" he asked, his voice casual, as though nothing was wrong. "It's good," I replied, sliding into the booth across from him. "Everything's going fine." "Great, great. So, listen," he started, his voice dropping a bit lower, "Mom and Dad are really stressed about their house. They're getting older, and you know how it is with them. They just want to be close to family. And with everything that's been going on, they feel like you could help them out." I could feel the familiar pang of guilt twisting in my stomach, but I steeled myself. I had to be firm, had to stand my ground. "Michael, I told Mom already that I can't have everyone move in. It's too much. I'm just getting settled in, and I need this space for myself. I can't be the one to take care of everything, not again." He leaned back, his expression softening as he studied me. "I get it, I do. But think about it. It wouldn't be permanent. Just until they figure things out, you know?" "No, Michael. I've given enough. I've always been the one who sacrifices, and I can't keep doing it. This is my time now, my chance to finally have something that's mine. I don't want to lose it." He sighed and reached across the table, his hand resting on mine. "I get it, Em. But you've always been there for us. We need you now." I pulled my hand away, my resolve firming. "I've been there for you all, for years. But now, I need to be there for myself. I can't keep giving everything away. I deserve to have my own life." There was a long pause between us, and I could see the conflict in his eyes. He was torn between his loyalty to our parents and his understanding of my need for independence. Finally, he nodded slowly. "I get it. I'll talk to Mom and Dad. But don't close the door completely. You know we love you, right?" I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. I had said what I needed to say, but I couldn't help but wonder what would happen next. Would my family respect my decision, or would the pressure continue? As I left the diner that night, I felt a strange sense of both relief and uncertainty. I had set boundaries, but I knew the battle wasn't over. There would be more talks, more attempts to sway me. But for now, I had made my stand. And that was something I could be proud of. The next few days felt like a blur of anxious energy. The conversation with Michael had left me feeling drained, but also oddly empowered. I had stood my ground, and that was something I hadn't done in years. I was proud of myself for not giving in to the guilt trip that seemed to follow every interaction with my family. But there was still this gnawing feeling inside me, a sense of discomfort that I couldn't quite shake. Was I doing the right thing? Was I being selfish? I couldn't help but replay Michael's words over and over in my mind. "You've always been there for us," he'd said, and a part of me wondered if I had really always been there, or if I had simply been the one who never said no. Maybe I had been the one to shoulder the burdens because I couldn't stand seeing my family struggle, but in doing so, I had lost pieces of myself. Now that I was starting to reclaim those pieces, was it wrong to want to keep them? The house felt strangely empty now, despite the soft hum of my laptop and the occasional buzz of my phone. I had spent so much time on my own these past few years, and I had grown accustomed to the quiet, the solitude. It was a space that was mine, my sanctuary from the chaos of the outside world, from the demands of family and friends. But now, with every passing moment, it felt more like a battleground. My mind was constantly at war with itself. Every time I tried to relax or focus on something, my thoughts would wander back to the conversation with Michael. My family's needs weighed heavily on me, pulling me in a direction I didn't want to go. The morning after my meeting with Michael, I decided to go for a run. I needed to clear my head, to escape the endless loop of questions and doubts that were consuming me. I laced up my sneakers, pulled on a hoodie, and headed out the door. The air was fresh and crisp, the kind of morning that made you feel alive, yet calm. As I ran through the familiar streets of the neighborhood, I found myself reflecting on my relationship with my family. Growing up, I had always been the one who looked out for everyone. I was the oldest, and that came with its own set of responsibilities. I had always thought that if I worked hard enough, if I sacrificed enough, I could make everything better. I could fix everything. But now, as an adult, I realized how unrealistic that had been. My parents were grown, and so were my siblings. They didn't need me to fix things. They needed to take responsibility for their own lives. And I needed to stop carrying the weight of it all. I pushed myself harder, trying to outrun the thoughts that kept chasing me. My breath became heavier, my legs started to ache, but I didn't stop. I was determined to clear the fog in my mind, to find some clarity. As I reached the park near the edge of the neighborhood, I slowed to a walk, letting my heart rate come down. There, sitting on a bench in the park, was a woman I didn't recognize. She looked like she had been there for a while, her face relaxed, eyes closed as she soaked in the sun. Something about her calmness caught my attention. She exuded peace, an aura that felt almost unattainable in my current state. She seemed so at ease. I was jealous of it. I walked past her, but as I did, I noticed she opened her eyes and smiled. It was the kind of smile that made you feel like everything was going to be okay, even if you weren't sure how. "Morning," she said softly, and I found myself smiling back, despite the storm of emotions churning within me. "Good morning," I replied, my voice feeling tight. She looked at me for a moment, her eyes assessing, almost as though she could sense the inner turmoil I was battling. "Running from something?" she asked, her tone light but knowing. I hesitated for a moment, unsure how to respond. Who was she to ask such a question? But then, something in me decided to answer her honestly. Maybe I needed to talk to someone, even a stranger, who wouldn't judge me. "From myself, I think," I said quietly, looking down at the ground, feeling a strange vulnerability wash over me. She didn't say anything at first, just let the silence stretch between us. Then, she chuckled softly, a warm sound that seemed to ease the tension in the air. "I get that," she said. "It's hard to run from yourself. But sometimes, all you can do is stop, breathe, and take it one step at a time." I nodded, feeling like her words were sinking deep inside me. One step at a time. It sounded simple, but it felt like exactly what I needed to hear. For months, I had been rushing through life, trying to fix things, trying to make everyone else happy, and in doing so, I had lost my way. Maybe the solution wasn't about fixing things at all. Maybe it was about accepting that I couldn't control everything, that I wasn't responsible for anyone's happiness but my own. I sat down on the bench beside her, letting the weight of my thoughts settle, if only for a moment. The woman didn't press me to talk more, but her presence was comforting. It felt good to just sit in silence, to be present in the moment. "I'm Emily," I said after a while, breaking the silence. "Olivia," she replied with a smile. "Nice to meet you." We sat there for what felt like hours, just enjoying the quiet. When I finally stood up to leave, I felt a strange sense of calm that I hadn't felt in days. I thanked Olivia for the company and made my way back home, feeling lighter, as if I had shed a little bit of the weight I had been carrying. That afternoon, I decided to take a step back from everything. I turned off my phone and closed my laptop. I wasn't going to solve everything in one day, but maybe I didn't need to. Maybe it was okay to just be still for a while. I had spent so long trying to make everyone else happy, to fix the cracks in their lives, that I had forgotten how to focus on my own happiness. That evening, as I sat down to dinner alone, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe it was okay to let go, to stop trying to be the savior. Maybe it was okay to say no, to put my needs first for once. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was starting to find my way back to myself. The next week was a blur of reflection and decision-making. It felt as though the weight of the world had shifted ever so slightly, but I still felt like I was standing at a precipice. After the conversation with Michael, and the brief but impactful encounter with Olivia, I had spent hours lost in my thoughts. I had been so focused on the needs of my family for so long that I didn't even know what I truly wanted anymore. It was as if the years of being everything to everyone had erased my own sense of self, leaving me with only traces of who I once was. But now, sitting with that space, I had begun to ask myself some hard questions. What if I wasn't just a support system? What if I was allowed to be something more? The days after meeting Olivia were strange. I felt a flicker of something deep inside me, a quiet stirring. It was hope, or maybe it was something even more powerful, but courage. Courage to finally take control of my own life. I didn't have all the answers, but I knew that I couldn't continue living in a way that ignored my own happiness. And that thought terrified me. Every time I picked up my phone or checked my emails, there it was, the pressure. My family needed me, and I could feel that pull. Michael had already called me twice, asking if I had made up my mind about coming back home. He assured me that everyone was depending on me, that my absence was causing more stress, more worry. And part of me wanted to give in, to throw on my cape and fly to the rescue. But something inside me held back. That Saturday, I woke up early with a sense of determination. I had made a decision. No more guilt, no more sacrificing my happiness for the sake of others. I wasn't going to leave my family behind, but I was going to stop trying to carry their burdens. They were grown adults. They had to find their own way, just as I had to find mine. I decided to call Michael. My heart pounded in my chest as I dialed his number. This was going to be hard, harder than anything I had done in a long time. But I had to do it. I couldn't keep living my life in a state of constant compromise. "Hello?" Michael answered, his voice warm but tired. "Hey, Michael," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "It's me." "Hey. How are you doing? Have you thought about what we talked about?" I paused, taking a deep breath. I had rehearsed this conversation in my head 1,000 times, but now that it was happening, I felt uncertain. But I pushed through. "Michael, I've been thinking a lot about everything. And I've realized that I can't keep doing this. I can't keep sacrificing myself for everyone else. I have to focus on my own life now." There was silence on the other end of the line, and for a moment, I wondered if I had said the wrong thing. if he would be upset or angry, or maybe even disappointed. But then Michael spoke, his voice soft but firm. "I understand, Emily. I really do," he said. "It's just, we've always counted on you. We've always looked to you to make everything better." I felt a pang in my chest at his words, but I knew this was the only way forward. "I know. And I've always wanted to be there for you. But I've been losing myself in the process. I can't keep doing that. I've been ignoring my own dreams and my own needs for so long that I don't even know who I am anymore." There was another long pause, and when Michael spoke again, his tone was gentler, almost apologetic. "I get it. You're right, Emily. We've all been relying on you too much. I didn't realize how much pressure we've been putting on you." The words, though simple, felt like a weight being lifted off my shoulders. I didn't expect him to fully understand what I was going through, but just hearing him acknowledge my feelings made me feel seen. "I'm not going to disappear, Michael," I continued. "I'll always be here for you, but I need to focus on myself for a while. I hope you understand." "I do," he replied, and I could hear the sincerity in his voice. "I'm sorry, Emily. I never meant to make you feel like you had to do everything for us. We'll figure it out. Take care of yourself, okay?" "I will," I said, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. "And thank you. I'll be in touch." After I hung up, I sat in the silence of my apartment, letting the reality of the conversation sink in. It was over. I had taken the first step toward reclaiming my life. And although I knew it wasn't going to be easy, I also knew it was the right thing to do. The next few days were a mixture of emotions. A part of me felt guilty for stepping back, for not being the person my family had come to rely on so much. But another part of me felt liberated, lighter than I had in years. I started to focus on things that brought me joy, taking long walks through the city, reading books I had been putting off, even learning how to cook some new recipes. I had forgotten how much I loved doing these things. The world felt new again. As the weeks passed, I started to reconnect with friends I hadn't seen in ages. I made time to nurture relationships that I had neglected while I had been so wrapped up in the chaos of my family's needs. And it felt good. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was living for myself, not just for others. Of course, there were still moments of doubt, times when I would wonder if I was being selfish, or if I had made a mistake. But I would remind myself that taking care of myself wasn't selfish, it was necessary. And slowly, I began to rebuild a version of myself that I had lost along the way. It was a slow process, but every small victory, every step toward rediscovering who I was, felt like a triumph. Then one afternoon, I received a message from Olivia. I hadn't heard from her since our brief conversation in the park, and I was surprised when I saw her name pop up on my screen. "Hey, Emily. Just wanted to check in. I've been thinking about our chat the other day. I hope you're doing well and taking time for yourself. Life can be so much more peaceful when we give ourselves permission to let go of the things that don't serve us." Her message made me smile. It was just a simple note, but it felt like a reminder that I wasn't alone in this journey. I had learned that it was okay to let go of the weight I had been carrying, and I was beginning to realize that peace wasn't just about avoiding conflict, it was about making choices that aligned with my own truth. As the months passed, I found myself adjusting to this new way of living. At first, it was jarring, taking time for myself felt almost foreign. There was a constant tug, a reminder that my family still needed me, that my absence was still felt. But something had shifted inside me, and I could no longer ignore the fact that I was just as important as everyone else. I had spent so many years putting others first that I had forgotten what it felt like to put myself at the center of my own life. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when I felt a twinge of guilt, wondering if I had made the right choice. But then I would think back to the quiet moments of peace I had found, the evenings spent reading a novel I'd been meaning to get to, the mornings I could now take leisurely walks in the park without checking my phone every few minutes, the cooking experiments that brought a sense of accomplishment to my kitchen. These small joys were beginning to feel like milestones, and with each passing day, they became a reminder of the woman I was before I became consumed by responsibility. One evening, I was sitting in my apartment, sipping tea and flipping through an old journal, when I saw a message from Olivia. It was brief but powerful. "I've been thinking about you a lot lately. I admire the way you've taken control of your life. It's not easy, but you're doing it. You're not just surviving anymore, you're living." Her words hit me harder than I expected. It was as if she saw something in me that I hadn't fully realized yet. I had been so focused on what I was giving up, on the uncertainty of stepping back from my family, that I hadn't paused to acknowledge what I had gained. I had found a path back to myself. I wrote back to her, my fingers moving quickly across the keyboard. "Thanks, Olivia. I think I'm finally starting to realize what it means to live for myself. It's been a journey, but I'm learning every day." Her response came almost immediately. "Good. And don't let anyone, family or anyone else, make you feel guilty for that. You deserve to be happy. You've given so much of yourself, and now it's your turn to take. Trust me, the world will be better for it." Reading her message, I felt something stir inside me, a sense of resolve. I had made a choice, and while it had been one of the hardest decisions I'd ever made, it was also one of the best. I had to remind myself that self-care wasn't selfish. It was essential. And Olivia's words were a reminder that I wasn't alone in this journey. There were people, like her, who understood. One afternoon, as I sat in my favorite cafe with a cup of coffee, I received a call from my mother. My first instinct was to brace myself. I had avoided their calls at times, trying to find balance between the pull of family and my need for space. But this time, I took a deep breath and answered. "Mom?" I said, keeping my tone light. "Emily. I'm so glad I reached you." My mom's voice came through, warm but tinged with concern. "How are you? We've all been thinking about you a lot lately. Your father mentioned how quiet things have been without you around." I could hear the hint of sadness in her voice, and my heart softened. I wasn't about to fall back into the old patterns of guilt, but I couldn't ignore how much I loved them. This wasn't about abandoning my family, it was about finding my own life within that love. "I'm doing well, Mom," I said, the words feeling more real each time I said them. "I've been really focusing on myself these past few months, and I think it's been good for me. I needed it." There was a pause on the other end of the line, and I could almost hear her processing what I had said. "I understand, honey. It's just, we've missed you. Your dad, he doesn't say it much, but he misses you too. We all do." I smiled softly. "I miss you guys too. But I'm learning to be okay with taking a step back. I hope you understand that." "I do," she said, and I could tell she meant it. "You deserve to be happy, Emily. Don't forget that." Her words were a balm to my soul. In that moment, I realized how much I had been carrying, not just for myself, but for everyone around me. And though it had been hard to step back, it had also allowed me to reclaim my life. A few weeks later, Michael called again. This time, I didn't hesitate. I had made peace with the decisions I'd made, and I knew I had to communicate openly with him about where I stood. "Hey, Michael," I said when I answered. "Emily," he said, his tone familiar. "I just wanted to check in. How are you doing?" "Really doing?" I leaned back in my chair, taking a deep breath. "I'm good. Better than I've been in a long time. I've been taking the time I need to focus on myself. It's been life-changing, honestly." "I can hear it in your voice," he said, and there was a quiet understanding between us. "I know it hasn't been easy. But I just want you to know, I'm proud of you. It takes a lot of strength to choose yourself." Hearing him say that, hearing the genuine support in his voice, made me feel like I wasn't alone in this. Even though our paths had diverged, there was still a bond between us, one that wasn't defined by guilt or obligation. You don't have to carry the world on your shoulders, Emily, Michael continued. I think you're realizing that now, and that's a huge step. I'm here if you ever need me, okay? I know, Michael. Thank you, I said, feeling a sense of peace wash over me. As I moved forward, the process of rebuilding my life wasn't always smooth. There were days when I doubted myself or questioned if I had made the right choice. But slowly, with every step I took toward rediscovering who I was, my passions, my dreams, my needs, I realized that I was living the life I was always meant to live. In the end, it wasn't about cutting ties or abandoning the people I loved. It was about finding balance. It was about learning that caring for others didn't mean sacrificing myself. And now, more than ever, I knew that I could be both, someone who loved fiercely and deeply, but also someone who had the right to live for herself. As I looked toward the future, I felt ready. Ready to embrace whatever came next. The journey had just begun.